Today on the show, we've got Ben Laws. Ben, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So for people who haven't heard of Avexia, can you talk a little bit about your business?
Yeah, we are a wealth coaching, wealth management company. It was co-founded by Jenna Laws and myself. I feel very fortunate that I get to work with my life partner. At Avexia Wealth, what we're designed to do is help people transform how they think and feel about their money. You know, especially in light of today, what everyone is experiencing. I think transformation is what people are looking for with their money. And so, again, we help many people through our wealth coaching services and also our wealth management platform transform how they think and feel about their money.
So in the wealth management space, what are some of the changes that maybe people wouldn't be as familiar with? What's going on out there?
You know, I think the thing that is happening with people, and specifically in their money, is there's this huge generation, the baby boom generation, that is quickly approaching, and that about 25% of them have already approached and are in, retirement. And every decade that they have gone through, they have really redefined what was this, now is this. And I think one of those major things is the R word, right? The retirement word. And I think that the baby boom generation is transformed that from retirement to financial independence. They've already put maybe their 30 plus, 35 plus years in, and they're starting to really look at going, I exchanged all this time and talent for pay, right? And now they have the ability to reconvert that back into something else. And what is that something else? And for the first time in their life, there's no one telling them that this is the value that they can get out of that conversion back, right? And that conversion back is taking their retirement assets, their stewardship, and applying that to their relationships and to the vision that they want to see. And I think the thing that people have gotten so good at is saving money, right? And we've always been don't spend, save. What people don't realize is that save is kind of put down a bad moniker. Saving is just to be spent later. And I think that's the part in terms of where people are needing to see a change in, is that savings is fun. Saving is cool, because if we actually pose a question, if you didn't spend that today, what would you want to spend it on, right? And I think that what we're seeing this all come back full circle is that people are starting to go through that and look at, what is that exchange rate? What would I want to spend that on?
Yeah. So when you think about how much privacy there is in the finance world, are there any stats that you share about whether it's AUM or number of clients or anything for people to give a sense that you guys didn't just start this 6 months ago?
Yeah, it's a really good question. At Avexia Wealth, we're very much a boutique firm, and we manage right around 200 million of AUM. We've been doing this I'll be actually just celebrating my 16th year in the industry in August, and starting my 17th year. We help over about 315 families across the country. And we were really predominantly designed for people who are looking for collaboration. There's a certain point of where you go through and you want to be able to understand what it is that you're doing. So knowing what you own, knowing why you own it, that's a huge foundational portion for us at Avexia Wealth. But you don't want to just be doing it alone, right? I liken it to when you went to work and you were solving a company's problems, right? And it was a company's money. You're like, hey, well, this is what you need to do, right? I mean, if the company just would get on board with it, this is super simple, right? Well, when you actually are working on your own money, and at Avexia, we look at everyone as if they're their own company, right? They are the world's greatest company that they just haven't really necessarily fully realized. It's a lot harder to make those decisions of what you need to be doing and what you don't need to be doing when it's your own money. And so our firm is really, and our company is really designed that people who want a partner in this financial journey, and helping them, really tie their mission, vision, and values into what their money is doing for them.
Well, so I think a question some people might have is, look at how successful you are. You already manage over $200 million assets under management that you guys are helping with. Why join a group like the Seven Systems? What was it about this? And let's start with there.
Yeah, I think this is a really great question. Specifically, as I think about like my journey with the Seven Systems of Influence, is that when I started looking around, right, and how do we distinguish ourselves from anyone else, right? I started to think about thought leadership, and what thought leadership really then led me down to, which is really the core of what I'm wanting to do in my entrepreneurial life, is drive deep impact. And, and I started to look in just our little corner, right? As we do all these, in our entrepreneurial world, right? We have this little corner of the entrepreneurial universe. And what really intrigued me about what Josh is doing is being able to teach, I think, a unique skill. How can we drive deeper impact in a way that we can democratize what we're doing and allow other people to be able to partake in that? I think one of the things I look at what we do at Avexi Wealth is give the gift and no worry. And I think that what Josh does in this group is actually give you the gift that you can give to others, right? How can you actually take what you're doing and put it into actionable chunks in whether it's literary, whether it's vlogging, whether it's, LinkedIn, and really build to try to drive deep impact, right? And in my mind, if when people are looking at this, of just going, well, how do I drive more clients? Yeah, I think that'll happen. But really, what I really appreciate about what Josh is doing in this group is that by driving impact, new customers or new clients or new people who are listening to what you are doing is a natural outcome of just getting your thoughts out there, right? And providing that leadership.
I think about some of the other people that have been in the group with you over this last year. And, I look at, for instance, we did one of these recordings with Stacy, right? And you look at just the way she's authentically showing up on LinkedIn and the level of engagement and like literally hundreds of people wanting to connect with her and having major clients, like, multi-billion-dollar asset managers reaching out to her. It's funny, there's so many of us in finance here, but it's interesting, right? How that, like, to me, because I think sometimes personal branding can feel like, oh, look at me, I need to be the guy on the stage waving his arms around, pretending like I'm a big deal instead of just being me, And yeah. It doesn't have to be that way, does it?
No, it doesn't. And actually, this is one of the big things that when I was interviewing Josh to see about, hey, do I want to do this? That was actually one of the big obstacles that I had, right? In terms of one of these like fears that I had about, well, I'm just going to be out there talking about how great I am and all these other different aspects. And what he gave me the permission to do was to say, no, you be you. Like, you be authentic. You do the things that in terms are going to be wildly helpful to other people, and do what's gotten you to be successful, thus far. But I'm going to give you some intentionally built structure to be able to really help drive that authenticity so that other people can see it, right? I mean, it's kind of like, how can other people be a witness to like your inner like super ability, right? And that how you're driving impact already with those people. And I think Stacey is a great example of that. I mean, Stacey is probably one of the most authentic people that I know. I mean, she just has a passion to like help, like especially money managers, to be able to just rise to levels that they wouldn't be able to do without her. I mean, she has a huge passion for that. And I mean, who wouldn't want to hear that, right? If you're in that industry, who wouldn't want to like know how do you raise billions of dollars, right? How do you actually compete against like the big Wall Street firms, right? And I think it's pretty awesome. But that was a huge driver. What drove me here was that Josh didn't say, I need you to change, right? He just said, no, we need to intentionally build a structure so that you become even more authentically you, just to thousands of people.
Yeah, I think, when Josh and I have known each other for years and done a number of things together. And I was excited when he asked me to come help him with this, just to hear about like, how did he get his 30,000 followers? And how did he write a book so good Richard Branson invites him to come hang out at his island? And you know what I mean? Like, these accomplishments Josh has done, getting 300 articles in magazines and stuff like that. And I wanted like the behind the scenes secrets, but really like everybody that is in it together has actually become just as powerful to me. Like, it sounds like cliche to say that, but it's so true of like, who else is in this? I've learned as much from each one of you guys, you know?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the secrets. It's about, I don't know if anyone has seen the play Hamilton, but one of the portions in there, Aaron Burr talks about being in the room where it happens. And I think very much about like what Jess, what you just said, you are in the room where it happens, right? Because, I think the best thought leaders aren't necessarily the ones who know all of the knowledge. They're the ones who ask the right questions, right? And so, Josh in his marketing space and his thought leadership space is, he just knows how to ask the really good questions so that the rest of the room is manufacturing really great ahas and answers. And I think that is the real gold. I mean, Josh provides a lot of framework to go through here, but when you get 6, 10, 20 people in the same room who are all with the same desire to drive deep impact, to get their message out, to be more authentic, instead of to like hundreds, but to thousands, to tens of thousands of people, it's pretty tough to like beat that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to, I think in this interview, I want to do a bit of how you got to where you're at and how you're thinking about getting where you want to get to. So thinking of this, you got over 300 of these great family clients, managing $200 million of their money. There's a lot of folks that would love to know the secrets to dealing with high net worth clients, and how do you get millionaire families to trust you? What are some rookie mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to, and let's talk specifically for investors, they can translate it to their own industry, but what are some rookie mistakes you see when people are talking to wealthy families about, millions of dollars of their money?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things. I think number one, when you're dealing with a high net worth individual, they're already successful, right? So at the end of the day, if you think of yourself as a CFO in an organization, you are there to help give them the best information so that they can make really great decisions. And I think often what I see is that there are people who are being talked at, there are people being in terms of just kind of pushed in one direction. And especially when a client maybe starts sharing some like financial information, right? Oh, hey, I have $2 million in this. And it's almost kind of like living in Wisconsin here in terms of we have deer hunting, right? So almost it's like buck fever, right? In terms of like that's all you see is those numbers. And at the end of the day, high net worth people are more than the net worth portion of it, right? Their real net worth is really about what are the relationships they have in their life, right? Where's the vision where they want to go? What's their freedom to, right? Because it's really clear they probably have a really good understanding of what that freedom from is, right? And they just want to make sure that their money is on the path, the roadmap to be able to achieve their abundance. And I've actually seen this happen quite a bit. We actually had one week we had coming into our company is that we had a person come in with $300,000 and we had a person come in with like $3 million. And what's interesting to me is that they both had the same 2 a.m. thought, right? And that 2 a.m. thought was, do I have enough, right? Will I have more time than money? And am I doing the right thing? Right. And that's what's incredible to me. And I've seen the difference if you want an even bigger expanse, right? 3 million to someone who has $10 million, right? It's just a different level of what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that, the mistake is that we assume that someone comes in with, $3 million, $10 million, $20 million, and we assume that they just have it like made, that they don't have any 2 a.m. thoughts. And I think that to really get to the heart of the matter is, and I think that's the gateway to all client relationships, all like client partnerships, is that understanding what are those 2 a.m. thoughts, because that's going to allow us to be able to take advantage of opportunities they want, the strengths that they want. And so much we get stuck in, well, how much money do you have? Well, now I have a solution, right? It's very much I go to a car lot, I say I have this money, And now I start spouting at you in terms of, well, I have this as this return, I have this and this return. And we actually miss in terms of what I think high net worth individuals are really looking for, right? They already know that they have a bunch of money. The question is, are they doing the right thing? Are they going to be able to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, with who they want to do it, and where they want to do it?
Well, I think about the most sophisticated professionals that I have respect for and the way that they do business development. And I'm interested in your approach to this idea of, you obviously have your desires of like, you're wanting to get a new client. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how you take care of your family. That's how your kids are going to go to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, pushing or being manipulative or things like that are a real shortcut to them resisting you.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So my question is, in your mind, what does walking that balance beam look like? Where if you underdo it and you don't put your best foot forward, you don't express any opinions, they're like, oh, this guy's a wet fish hand. This guy's a dead fish handshake. Like that's not what I was looking for. And yet, if you get buck fever, as you call it, and you go too hard on them, you just scare them off. Any just a way that you sort through it in your brain of letting them speak, helping them realize it's their decision, while at the same time taking the responsibility to educate them and give them what you think is the best information to make that decision on it. Just how do you navigate that?
I think this is well, you've asked a lot of really good questions. I think this is a really great one, specifically because people who have been successful understand and can feel from a million miles away when someone is trying to sell them something. And so really early on in my career, I just said, I'm not going to try to sell them on something. Really, at the end of the day, it's a dual interview, right? Them to me and me to them, right? And I think part of this is that going through this process of just asking questions, right? At the end of the day, how can you pretend that you know what to help them with if you have no idea what their frame of reference is, right? You have no idea what their experience is, specifically with money, right? You don't know from the standpoint that it was maybe their mom and dad, right, who have since passed, actually argued about money, right? Well, that's a huge portion of what it is that you can help them, right? Because my guess is they don't want to have any arguments about that, right? Or, maybe they saw their parents didn't save enough, right? And they wanted to make sure that they have enough, right? I mean, that's a real fear. We've had people come in with millions of dollars who go, I don't think I have enough. I'm gonna have to work to age 70. And you're looking at it going, you spend $2,000 a month, you have $3 million. Like even the most, math.
That's a very ambitious life expectancy.
Yeah, it is. It's very ambitious. Exactly. But not only that, but the other part of it is that when a client comes in, I don't expect that I know what's best for them, because we are very much like client-led, or as we call CEO-led, right? Because our clients that work with us are CEOs. We're just CFO team, right? We're just their partners in this and helping them make these really great decisions.
I want to pause you there, okay?
Yeah.
So what do you do to help tamp your own ego down when you guys are obviously specialists at what you do? You've got CFA on your team, you've got years of doing this, and you might actually know more than them about something, which is hence the reason they're coming for your expertise. What do you do to help reduce your own ego in that scenario and keep that servant leader type of attitude?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I always think about it from the standpoint, if my mom and dad went and talked to someone, what would you expect that fiduciary responsibility, what's that stewardship? What is the aspect that you would want? And I think too, is that I've been in the position of walking in and I'm not the smartest person in the room, right? Like I know nothing about X, Y, Z. And I thought back up to me about all the experiences, the person who took that, who understood that, but didn't take advantage of it. They really helped me go. So it's not A to B, right? There's A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's B 1, 2, 3. And really allowed myself to be able to walk down the rabbit hole so that I understood it, right? Because when I understand it, I own it, right? I mean, to me, that is like the most dangerous form of just excellence, because you own it, right? And then so especially with our clients own, and they know what they own, and they know why they own it. They have ownership over what they're doing. So when we have a market downturn, like where it goes down 37% in 20 days, right? We're not getting calls, right? Because we did what in terms of I would want to have happen. So I think for me, in terms, we've been really, I think, successful, I think, by really understanding and listening to what people are wanting, because we're listening to ourselves to say, if I was in that same position, how would I want to be treated? And two is, if someone I loved was in that position, how would I want them to be treated, right?
Yeah. I think it makes me think about something else you brought up earlier. This idea that you're interviewing them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my early 20s, so often I would go, it doesn't matter. I used to, finance jobs sound fancy, okay, when you're dealing with millions of dollars or whatever. But I used to sell yellow page ads. I used to sell business plans, cell phone, business to business cell phone plans. I used to sell a bunch of crap, right? And there's these times when you if I let it be about me, there's like a desperation for a sale. And I start not connecting with them as this human to human type of connection. Right. Yeah. And everything you've said, I love. It makes me think about when Warren Buffett says he writes his annual shareholder letter to his, like it's to one of his sisters who's been away from the business for a year.
Yeah.
Where she just wants the straight info. She doesn't need gobbledygook. She doesn't need jargon. She doesn't need convincing. She just needs information in a way that she can process it, not from an expert talking down to somebody, right?
Yes.
So yeah. I'm with you on everything. And I actually think the times when I can calm down and come to the conclusion, I would really love it if this person bought, but I don't really care if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get there mentally, things go better. My question for you is, how do you get there mentally? Of course, you would love it if they put their 3 million with you. How do you tamp that down so that you can just genuinely listen instead of listening with an agenda?
Well, I think for me, it really comes down to, I'm trying to drive impact. And so this idea, when you camp, right, you leave it better than when you found it, is that when I'm interviewing someone, is if they're not a good fit, we're not connecting, it's probably not going to have really high outcomes. So why would I want to put that client in a position to not have the highest outcome? I would much rather them leave with a really great sense of where they maybe should go.
Because short term, I want the commission. Because if I think short term, I just want the quick money.
Yeah. So here's what'll happen. So let's just, full disclosure here, right? Started 16 years ago in the industry. You're just trying to survive. I mean, just let's put a little perspective here. In the first year, 90% of the people in the financial services industry fail, right? And then the 10% of them who survive by the end of year 3 are gone, right? So I mean, it's for a variety of reasons, right? They can't handle can't handle the fact of a volatile paycheck. I found that in terms of the times where I started to put my own ego, my own sort of the company needs ahead of the clients, is that the outcomes that happened, the client wasn't happy, I wasn't happy. And really at the end of the day, the short-term gain, long-term problem, right? And to me, I learned really quickly, it was going, no, if we actually look at this and not just as a job, right? A job is time and effort, right? You go and show up and here's what it is. And I started looking at this, and the fact is, I want to do this for the next 50, 60 years, right? And I don't want my legacy to be that in terms of I was really good at getting people to say yes. I want my legacy to be the fact is I created really great long-term partnerships. I helped change people's lives. I helped abundance come into their life, or maybe magnified even more in their life. And then, one of the things that we really started to focus on, what is the definition of wealth, right? And so the definition of wealth, go back to the Old English word weal, which W-E-A-L, it meant well-being, and the T-H means the condition of. So I think for us, where it was going, it's really easy for us to be able to go through and just let a sleeping dog lie. When we go, you know what? we're not a good match. Like our core values aren't a good match. But you know what? Let me actually make an introduction to someone else who I think would be a really great fit for you, because there's so many clients that need help, right? There's so much money in the world today that what I found is that what comes around goes around. My dad was a pastor, my mother was a nurse. And, I think that the lessons I took from like my childhood was that there's always going to be more than enough, right? And when you treat people well, and I've actually gotten, which is really interesting to me about, I had clients that they didn't end up being my clients because I said, you know what, I don't think this is a really good fit, but you'd actually be a better fit with so-and-so. You know what, when they were talking with someone, they said, hey, who should I go to talk about my financials? You know who they referred? Was me. Because what could have been an uncomfortable decision was really comfortable. And because I was being authentic, I was being honest with them. And by the way, when you ask, how do I get past and how to help people without being like too like pushy? I'm just really honest, right? When it comes to compensation, pros and cons, right? I found that honesty is it goes back to a kid, right? Honesty is the best policy, right?
One other thing I want to bring in there, because I know you, is you have paid the price to know what you're talking about.
Yes.
You're not winging it. You're being honest about something you've put in the hours to gain a level of mastery and expertise at.
Yeah.
And I think that shows through. And I guess it actually leads to my next question, which is this idea, like, you and I have talked, and you're excited for this 12-month book program and the speaking. Yes. And the, get in major magazines and build an email list and stuff. How has these last 16 years prepared you for what you think you're going to write this year?
I felt like it gave me a PhD degree to be able to have like not only the thoughts, but knowing what questions to ask, right? What are the really important questions that people need to know? And I think back when you talked about metrics, in the industry, the average appointment counts like 4 to 6 appointments per week. Well, like for the last like 16 years, I think like my average appointment count has been about 6 to 8 per day. Right. And so when you add all of that up into there, I felt like I've been able to spend like 10,000 hours, and I feel like in all of these different glimpses of life, right? Because people had millions of dollars, guess what? At a certain point, they started off, and oftentimes they started off doing kind of like how I started, in terms of before I had this job, while I was in college, I did concrete, right? So like I understood the value of that. When you go exchange time and talent, like that's a really important like portion of it. And then once you have the money, right? So now, some of like my best clients, they started like on the roof, right? Putting in like shingles, the two of them, while other people were out having fun. Well, now here we are, right? In terms of things look a lot different, 30 years later. And so, I don't know. This is to finish
No, you go first.
So what led me to the fact of me getting to this 12-month program is that I think that I've created enough thought process and have dealt with enough people that I think that I can help people solve a lot of problems, right? It's kind of I can give information away, because the reality is that my hope is that people take action on it. But what most people don't know is what they don't know, right? And so that's what's really exciting about this 12 months is that I now have the ability in a platform and a group to be able to create synergy and energy to make and momentum to go through this, to like get it done, that I can help other people. I can drive deep impact. And you know what? If they don't go to me, guess what? You know what? I left it better than when I found it. 2 is if they want to like interview us and we can interview them, you know what? I love to be able to help them as well, right? I mean, it is a win-win no matter what.
Yeah. I've been thinking about writing a book for a long time. You and I are always talking about audiobooks back and forth, right? I'm a total audiobook nerd. And as a result, I really look up to these authors that I feel like have changed my life because of the way I think different because of them, Mm-hmm. And like I've worked hard at what I've worked at, but I still haven't been able to get a book done, right? No matter how much I seem to like it. So, this program isn't cheap, and you already know what you're talking about. Why pay all this money? Why pay all this money for this year when you already know what you need to put in a book?
Yeah, well, I think this goes. It's an interesting concept, and an interesting idea, an interesting question, and part of it is about going. We all get stuck with this like sticker shock, right? What am I going to get on the other side, right? This ethereal. Is it really going to be something that's going to happen? But I think everyone in their own life has buying things, right? So, for example, for my birthday, I really like beef, so I went and got 10 ounces of A5 Wagyu beef, right? Other people would think that's nuts, right? But for me, the joy of what it was, by the way, it was outstanding. It was really outstanding. It was awesome. I think that, well, go ahead.
Just for 1 second, for people who aren't nerds for steaks, how much more expensive is Wagyu beef versus just, your regular cut at the grocery store?
It's probably 3 times as expensive.
Yeah.
And that might be on the lower end. So I didn't go get like stuff direct from like Japan, but it's a guilty pleasure, right? Where someone may say, I'm going to go and buy like bow hunting gear, right? Or golfing, right? They spend like $5,000 on a set of clubs that they, at least in Wisconsin, maybe use like 3 to 4 months a year, right? I think when we think about the decision to go through this course, is that I actually quantify into 2 factors. Number one, who's going to be in the room, right? Well, there are going to be other people who are serious about it, right? So when you drop, that sort of money on there, that those people are going to be in the room, they're going to be serious about it. But 2 is they're going to like bring their A game, right? So you're getting like access to how to write this book, but even more, you're getting access to like the mind share that's going to be in there. So what you're paying isn't just for that. You're getting access to maybe your next best idea, right? You're getting access to potentially your next book beyond that, or potentially a collaboration that you could go through. So that's number one when I think about a buying decision like this, because that's what it is. You're going, what's the valuation? I think the second part of this is when you think about the end outcome, and the end outcome is you're going to have a book. And you know what? If no one else knows except for people in that room, and that people in the room are going to be motivated to make sure your book is successful, because guess what? If your book's successful, you're probably going to have access to maybe some podcasts and LinkedIn's, and maybe you're going to be able to return the favor, right? So I kind of look at this as like mutually assured, domination,
Success.
right? Yeah, I'm going to call it MAD, right? Mutual assured domination. But I think that when you're looking at it is, if you could turn, actually, I heard this example here actually earlier today. Someone said, hey, if I sell 100,000 books, I'm going to get 600 potential, whether you call it, wealth coach signups, or, in terms of like potential client, opportunities, whatever. When you think about that, depending upon what your business is, right? If you spend the money up front, right? And you get even half of those, right? Well, so half of 300 or whatever, I don't, whoever I'm talking to in this industry, right? Whatever your industry is, 300 or something is more than none of what you wouldn't have gotten without that book, number one. And 2 is that it's probably going to dwarf the investment into this program. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I look at it on like an ROI basis myself as well. Of like, I'm guessing Josh will bump up the price later, but as of this recording, it's like 30 grand for the year. Right. Mm-hmm. And I've already talked to my partners at Greystoke, at our Greystoke Investments Fund, about maybe we should be budgeting extra money on top for ghostwriters, because if this really works, what is the potential ROI there, and getting it close enough versus getting it over the finish line of becoming great. We're looking at it from a straight business perspective. And, when I took a break from finance and did management consulting, I worked for a firm whose, they did millions of dollars a year, and they joked around that their entire sales process was alternating who answered the phone. Okay. And it's because they had written such a good book. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. It sold like 2 million copies. It's great. Everyone should read it. But, the book was so, it spoke to people so much that people just looked them up and said, this book was amazing. Who are these guys? Looked them up, called us up and said, hey, I think we might need more of what you guys do. as a guy who got his first sales job at 15, and I look at 25 years of sales, like, holy cow, how great was it when I got to take those phone calls? Because I had been a client for 10 years doing the same thing. I'd read their books. One day I finally called them up and said, hey, I've been buying like dozens of copies of your books and giving them away to friends. I got to talk to you guys about something. We became friends. I started buying more of their services. Then I ended up coming to work for them for a couple of years. Right. Mm-hmm. And that was like some of the most fun sales I ever had. It was because I had like a real deep belief in it. Mm-hmm. And the book had already done the work for me. It was like the most amazing screening process, right? People pay $15 I called like the head of HR for Walmart globally and sent him the book for free. Yeah. And didn't try to convince him anything. And I just let the book do the work. And I had to bug him like a bunch of times over 4 months to actually finish the book. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't do any selling. I let the book express everything that we're about and then just answered his questions after that. And he invited me out to Bentonville to come meet with him, and like, anyways, that's some of my like thought process. I mean, I would love to just be a published author anyways from a personal level, but from like a, hard-nosed business standpoint, that's some of the calculations we're doing at our end. I'm sure it's different for you or similar in some ways.
Well, one of the things I would put back to what you had kind of pointed out was interviewing. Well, wouldn't it be nice if people had the ability to interview you long before I self-identify that they're a right fit, like client, customer, whatever your name is for like who you actually help and drive impact for. And I think that's the aspect about what this book writing is. It's so like intangible. It's not like if you go write this book, you're going to get like 3,000% return. But I bet it's actually going to be 100% more return that you're going to get without it. Right. And so when you think about in terms of if you could help people self-identify because they don't know what they don't know, right? And then two, then they can actually be drawn to you because they're going, wow, this is incredible. I could maybe do this myself, but boy, it'd be actually like more beneficial just to have them do it, right? So Dan Sullivan, the founder of Strategic Coaches, like just one of his core concepts is who, not how. How can we be the who for many people's hows? Well, guess what? If only 100 people know your how, right? You know that you're the who for their how. Well, how much impact do you drive? And what return investment are you getting on that, right? Now, if you could turn that to 1,000, right? Even if naturally you just went from 100 to 1,000, what's the return on investment of that, right? And I think the piece of it is, I think sometimes people get so locked in, what's that return number? But then if you go from 100 into 200, right? I mean, that's 100% return. Right.
Well, and I think about that too, of the like, in many ways, the book can become one of the best salespeople for the business, right? Mm-hmm. You look at Josh. Josh had been in 300 articles, right? Fortune and Forbes and all these things. And I didn't know him. Nobody told me about this guy who'd done all that, and mm-hmm. my podcast isn't the biggest in the world, but we're regularly either number one or number two top innovation podcast in the world right now. We've had over 2 million downloads, right? Mm-hmm. But because Josh had taken the time to write about his experience and teach somebody like me who wanted to do more with Forbes, I'm like, this stuff is amazing. We got to get this guy. And so he gets called up and gets free advertising, a free PR event to be on my show because he'd taken the time to do something of value to me by writing down the lessons he learned from actually doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And I look at how many things I've signed up for where it's like, Donald Miller and the Story Brand stuff, right?
Yep.
I bought his book, Story Brand, and it was like an audition for him and his staff before I ever went and used any of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, what a huge time saver. You work once, you get paid many times for the following years because you've got that content out there doing the work for you.
Well, I'm going to flip this around on the other side too. The fact is that the people are going to receive it, right? I have a feeling that for some of the people who are like listening to this going, boy, how ostentatious, I'm going to write a book. Do I really even have anything that's writing a book? And I will say from the standpoint, if you're listening to this, that means that you probably are interested in it and you do have something. But two is that I think about your story, what do we call storybook?
Oh, the Donald Miller one, the Story Brand?
Yeah, Story Brand is that you literally got like a master's degree from that book, right? And so, and sometimes I think people have a fear of that, is someone really going to pay $15 or $20 for like my book? Well, I guarantee from that book, that $20 or $25 you spent, you got probably 10,000x off of that.
Oh yeah. What would it have cost me at his hourly to have him teach me that personally, right? Such a value arbitrage of what I paid for it compared to what I got, right?
Yeah, you got like 20 hours of book that would have cost 5 minutes of his time. Right? Or maybe even maybe a minute of his time.
Right.
Right. So
yeah,
I just think that, so that was one of the things I had too, was going, I think it'd be like, I know I have a lot of value to put out into the world. And I think the other thing, when you'd asked before, what's the value of this, like this group, is that you have a bunch of fans who are going, no, actually, that's really good. Like, people want to hear about that. And so the things that you don't know if people want to hear about, you don't know until you surround yourself in a safe environment that they go, that's awesome. Like, that, you should write about that, right? Because that's going to be super impactful. And I think that this group also gives you permission to be able to, like, be your authentic self and do the things that, and really call out the things that you do naturally that are super easy, that you think are just, well, anyone can do this. Anyone would know this stuff. Well, I found that with myself, is that this group has helped me identify the things that they think are going to be really impactful into the world. So,
yeah. So full disclosure too, like, I'm 80% done another book, and I've been 80% done for months and months and months, and it's not getting finished, you know? And I know this about myself. Like, I'm really good at starting things. You think about how many of us entrepreneurs are good at starting things, right?
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that I'm looking forward to is being with you guys, and like, just having like the camaraderie of I'm not in it alone, right? But also like the little bit of competitiveness in me. If you guys are all finishing yours and I'm not finishing mine, you know, I know that'll push me a little.
Yeah.
But I look at myself, and it's like, you know, New Year's resolutions, or all the other times that I've like been good at starting something and not walked it over the finish line. And being a published author is important to me, and I really do want to get it over that finish line. And so there is an aspect of that is attractive for me in this as well.
Well, you know, the thing that I like about what you're saying is that you did the first 80%, which, quite frankly, is a really hard 80%.
And I had a co-author to get me there.
And you had a co-author get you there. But, you know, like, this group is really the who to the how, right? How do I actually get it over the finish line, right? And I think that's going to help. I think the other part of it is too, is that, you know, I think if we want to be thought leaders, it's about developing habits. And again, not to continually quote, you know, Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach here, but, you know, he said, we are 100% successful at the habits that we do already, right? The question is, are the habits that you're doing the successful ones, right? So if you think about thought leadership and you think about getting that stuff out there, you know, what better to have a group that's going to help you develop some habits, right? The habits that you can look back at the end of the year and go, did I get really good at the habits that helped me be successful, right? And
well, including the habit of getting back on the horse when I got off track.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see this next 20%.
Love it. You know what? I'm actually going to write a different book. I'm going to finish that one sometime with him. But this whole process of, like, I don't know. I love the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, and like Show Your Work, his next ones, you know. And he talks about this idea of write the book you want to read, write the book that you wish existed out there. And so I decided to go a different direction. The one I'm going to do this year is actually different. It's the book that I wish existed.
So just for the viewers who are going through here, like, this is what you get. You're getting a little bit of this, because just listening to Jess go through, like, about 3 or 4 ideas that just like hit like my head. And this is why I call, like, Jessipedia, right? So he's like Wikipedia, like entrepreneuropedia, right? Of going through. And so I think these are the things. So if you guys are watching this, like, this is the type of conversation that has happened. You get spurred by other people, you get other entrepreneurs who are wanting to see the bar continue to be raised, right? You know, if you look at our group, we're the average of everyone in the group. We constantly want to continue to, like, drive that average. And so you just spurred something that in me that I thought was just like, it was just so great. So that really came down from my ideas for a book. This idea, write the book that you'd want to read. I think one of the things I've been struggling with is going, okay, fully what is it I'm wanting to go through? And you just saying that, just like, so for everyone that's going through here in terms, you just got like a major discount, you didn't, but you just got like a free one of going through of what you already could be doing. And that this course is going to help you get through.
I wish I could take credit for it too. Obviously I got that direct line from Austin Kleon, but there's another person who expressed it really well. A guy had my podcast recently named Tyler Tringus. He, back when he worked at Bloomberg and I was a client, we were at like one of these fancy, expensive conferences right in London. And I'm sitting around with a bunch of these guys I'd these service guys who I'd been kind of be friends with, as being a client there. And I was saying there was a new aspect of how wind farms and renewable energy and a product called life settlements might interact. And I said, like, what do you guys think the fastest way to learn an industry is? Because they were known globally for having the best numbers on renewable energy investments of any firm in the world, right? And these are the actual analysts. I'm sitting with a handful of them. And Tyler pipes up and he says, I think write a blog about it. He's like, if you start writing about something, your own ego to not look dumb and your own curiosity will force you to learn more than if you're just browsing something. and that's got to be like, no kidding, 9 years ago or something. He said that to me, maybe longer. And it's really just stuck with me. And so that's what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to dive deeper into the research. I'm going to push myself to like basically create the how-to manual that I want to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that people forget is that there are a lot of people out there who want a how-to manual, like fill in the blank, right? How could I do this? And how could I do this better? It's, I think you can actually see in the books back there, Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans, right? I bought that book and he originally wrote that book for himself, right? So he could have a manual. And then I started reading it. And then I started diving deeper into each one of those authors, right? And because it was a how-to manual to just create exponential abundance and like health, wealth, and wisdom. And, I don't care what industry you're in, is that you're either going to help your customers or clients or patients, become better versions of themselves, or two, God forbid we actually make our customers or our competitors our customers, right? Then the day, thought leadership isn't just for like clients, right? Thought leadership is, could you be looked upon in the industry as kind of like the go-to person? I'm guessing in the innovation world, like an innovation podcast world, because you're always consistently number one or two, right?
And I know we should wind up here, but I think about exactly what you said. And that's why I'm excited that this is like, the 3 months on what the book should be, the next 3 months on building your email list and getting your social game on lock and getting like ready for the promotion so that by the end of the year, people will actually buy this thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the last quarter is the actual launch and getting in the major publications, but that middle one, that third one of, your keynote speaking and making a speaker's bio and learning how that game is played. Like I look at myself, at my other firm, at that consulting firm that I own now, one of my best clients for years, they're about an $8 billion firm. I was speaking at a conference I didn't even know they would be at. And they came up to me afterwards and they were like, we got to have you. You got to be in here. And it turned into a multi-year contract, working with the CEO and the entire the entire C-suite. And anyways, so I'm a believer.
Well, I love it. And my experience has been with the group so far is that I'm 100% farther ahead than where I was when I first started with the group. And I'm excited to see where I'm going to be 12 months from now. And my guess is
we should do this again at the end of the year.
We should, before and after.
Yeah. It'd be hilarious, right? I think it'd be great.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it'd be a really good, kind of before, just really to be able to see the difference of what that experience was and kind of what was the measurement that we measured backwards. Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to have one final thing. And I know you want to wrap up here. I think we get into this when you think about the investment is that there's dollars and there's XYZ. And I think, you know, if you can actually have a book and you've always been dreaming of writing a book or becoming a thought leader and having it out there, you know, if we want to fear set, the worst case scenario is that you speak on a couple platforms and a couple hundred people hear you, you're on LinkedIn, you know what, and going through, but at the end of the day, you still have a book. And here's an example is that my dad, who was a pastor, wrote a children's sermon book like forever ago. Right. And I think even as of like a year or two, he still got a few royalty, like, you know, checks in. And I mean, this is written back in like the early 80s. And, but one of the things that I have as his son is I have a lot of pride in the fact is that he actually wrote a book, right? He did what a lot of people didn't. And so I think just to encourage everyone not to get so caught up in just, it is a large investment, but again, the key word investment. And I think that when you go through, there are things that you can't measure on a balance sheet, and there's like self-confidence, pride, right? And so, and plus, I really want the best to be a part of it, because if I'm going to be part of that group, I really want you guys to be engaged. So there's selfish reason in there in terms of wanting to have people engage. So
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, this has been great. If people do want to connect with you, whether it's follow you on social or learn more about the company, can you give us the company website, and is LinkedIn the best place for them to connect with you, or what's?
Yeah, I would say in terms of, if you go to avexiawealth.com, and that's spelled E as in Edward, V as in Victor, E as in Edward, X as in Xerox, I as in ice, A as in apple. So Avexia, EVEXIA, wealth.com, which Avexia, by the way, means well-being in Greek, which again is the definition of wealth, or at least the origin of wealth. If you go there's a contact us, but there'll be a contact link in there for us to get a hold of us. Absolutely hit me up on the LinkedIn. And then we also have a Facebook place for people to go see. So yeah, if people have other questions or they want to go over anything, just let us know.
Okay. Ben Laws, thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.